The morning started like any other, with the soft hum of the alarm clock dragging me from sleep. But today was different. As I groggily reached for my phone, I noticed a new message notification from an unknown number. The image that greeted me was jarring. My wife's private parts, stark and undeniable. My heart pounded as I tried to process the surreal intrusion. Was this some sick joke or a cruel prank? I replayed the image in my mind, each frame searing into my consciousness. Panic surged through me, and I quickly texted the unknown number, trying to maintain some semblance of control. The message was clear but vague, hinting at secrets hidden behind closed doors. As I typed, I could feel the weight of my suspicions crushing down on me. The image had shattered my trust, and the uncertainty gnawed at my insides. I glanced at my wife's sleeping form beside me, her serene face a stark contrast to the storm brewing in my mind. I had to know where she was, who she was with, and why someone would send me such a damning image. I texted back, arranging to meet the sender at Julian's, a quiet spot I knew well. Meanwhile, I reached out to my wife, casually asking about her whereabouts. Her response was calm and reassuring, but every word felt like a potential lie. The tension was unbearable as I prepared for the meeting, each step heavy with dread. When I arrived at Julian's, the familiar surroundings did little to ease my anxiety. I scanned the room, my gaze falling on my wife in an intimate conversation with a colleague named Marcus. The sight was a punch to the gut, a cruel confirmation of my worst fears. My emotions erupted as I confronted Marcus, the physical altercation a blur of anger and betrayal. My wife's pleas and Marcus's defiant stance did little to soothe the raging storm inside me. The confrontation was raw and intense, leaving me breathless and disoriented. As the dust settled, the gravity of the situation began to sink in. I was left with a fragmented understanding of the deception that had unfolded before me. My wife's behavior, the hidden exchanges, and the betrayals among my colleagues painted a disturbing picture. Each revelation peeled back layers of deceit, exposing a tangled web of lies and manipulations. The confrontation with my wife was a heart-wrenching ordeal, filled with accusations and defensiveness. Her explanations were a tangled mess of half-truths and evasions, and each new revelation only deepened the wound. The tension continued to escalate, leading to more confrontations and a harrowing journey through the complexities of betrayal. The turning point came as I grappled with the full extent of the deception. I found myself face to face with Marcus once more, the intensity of our encounters culminating in a final, decisive confrontation. The realization of how deeply the betrayal had affected me was overwhelming, and I was forced to make critical decisions to address the deceit and its consequences. The aftermath was a painful process of coming to terms with the truth and the actions I had to take. The betrayal had left a deep scar, and the journey to rebuild and move forward was fraught with challenges. The resolution marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life, shaped by the painful lessons learned and the hard-fought decisions made in the wake of betrayal. My fingers trembled as I typed a response to the unknown number, each keystroke feeling like a step deeper into a murky abyss. The initial shock of the image had given way to a burning need for answers. "Who are you?" I texted, the words feeling inadequate to convey my swirling confusion and anger. The reply came swiftly, terse and cryptic. "Meet me at Julian's. You need to know the truth." A shiver ran down my spine as I read the message. Julian's was a quiet cafe, a place I frequented for its privacy and calm atmosphere. It felt like a deliberate choice, a place where secrets could be revealed and confrontations could be staged. I quickly composed another message, confirming the meeting. "I'll be there in 30 minutes." The moment the message was sent, I felt a pang of guilt for the deception I was about to enact. I turned to my wife, who was still lounging in bed, seemingly unaware of the chaos unfolding outside. "Hey, just checking in," I said casually, trying to mask my inner turmoil. "What are you up to today?" Her response was nonchalant, filled with mundane details about errands and a brunch with a friend. "I'm meeting up with some colleagues later," she added, seemingly oblivious to the storm brewing in my mind. I forced a smile, nodding along to her plans while my mind raced. Her alibi seemed too convenient, and the image from earlier had planted seeds of doubt that I couldn't shake. As she continued talking, I could hardly focus on her words, my thoughts fixated on the impending confrontation at Julian's. I needed to know what secrets lay hidden behind the curtain of normalcy. The juxtaposition of her casual demeanor and the gravity of the situation created a surreal sense of disconnection. I excused myself, the facade of calm crumbling as I prepared to leave. My heart pounded with a mix of dread and resolve as I made my way to Julian's, the promise of answers hanging heavy in the air. Each step felt like a march toward an inevitable confrontation, and as I approached the cafe, I couldn't shake the feeling that the ground beneath me was shifting, irrevocably changing the landscape of my life. As I pushed open the door to Julian's, a familiar chime rang out, mingling with the low murmur of conversation and the clinking of coffee cups. The cafe's cozy ambiance felt suddenly alien, a stage set for a confrontation I'd never anticipated. I scanned the room, my gaze falling on a secluded corner where my wife sat, her demeanor intimate and relaxed, across from Marcus, a colleague I'd only known in passing. My heart sank as I took in the scene, their proximity, the easy laughter that punctuated their conversation, and the way Marcus's hand lingered on her arm. The image I had received flashed in my mind, a cruel reminder of the betrayal I now faced. The world seemed to slow as I approached them, each step heavy with dread and anger. What the hell is going on here? My voice cut through the cafe's ambiance like a knife, sharp and unforgiving. Both my wife and Marcus looked up, their expressions shifting from surprise to a forced calmness. "We need to talk," I said, my tone laden with fury. Marcus's eyes flickered with a mix of guilt and defiance as he stood, his body tense. "Let's step outside," he suggested, trying to diffuse the situation with a veneer of politeness. The confrontation outside was immediate and explosive. The small alley behind Julian's became a battleground of emotions and accusations. "You think you can just waltz in here and act like nothing's happening?" I shouted, my anger propelling me forward. Marcus squared up, his face flushed with a mix of anger and fear. "Calm down, man," he tried to say, but his words were drowned out by the rising storm of my rage. Without warning, I pushed him, the force of my action propelling us both into a flurry of chaotic movement. The physical altercation was raw and unrestrained. Punches were thrown, shouts echoed, and the sense of betrayal fueled every strike. Marcus's attempts to defend himself were futile against the tidal wave of my fury, and the skirmish left both of us battered, physically and emotionally. As we separated, breathing heavily and glaring daggers at each other, the reality of what was unfolding hit me with full force. The confrontation had laid bare the personal and professional lines that had been crossed, leaving me with an overwhelming sense of violation and disbelief. My wife's face, pale and tear-streaked as she watched the scene unfold, only added to the crushing weight of the moment. The shocking discovery of her betrayal, combined with the intense physical altercation, marked a turning point in my understanding of the web of deceit I was now entangled in. As I left the scene, the enormity of the situation settled in, setting the stage for the confrontations and revelations that were yet to come. The confrontation with Marcus had left me raw and trembling, but it was only the beginning. My mind reeled as I left Julian's, the searing image of my wife's betrayal etched into my consciousness. Determined to uncover the full extent of the deception, I returned home, where my wife was anxiously waiting. Her face was a mask of fear and regret, but I could see the cracks in her facade, the flickers of guilt that betrayed her attempts to appear calm. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steely and unwavering. We sat down in the living room, and as she began to offer explanations, her words were a tangled mess of half-truths and evasions. Her initial denial gave way to reluctant admissions as I pressed her with specific details about the affair, the text messages, and the encounter at Julian's. It wasn't just Marcus. It became clear that the betrayal ran deeper than I had initially realized. The revelations unfolded like a grotesque mosaic, each piece more damning than the last. Elena's involvement with Marcus was just the tip of the iceberg. I discovered that she had been entangled in a broader network of deceit involving several colleagues. Her team, once seen as mere professional acquaintances, turned out to be complicit in a sordid game of infidelity and manipulation. Each revelation felt like a knife twisting deeper into the wound. Elena's relationships with other colleagues, the secret meetings, the elaborate lies she had spun to cover her tracks. The confrontation took a dramatic turn when I confronted Elena's team directly. The atmosphere was charged with hostility and discomfort as I laid bare the details of their betrayals. Faces turned pale and defensive as I recounted the evidence I had gathered. Hidden emails, incriminating messages, and witness accounts. The room was filled with a mix of anger, shame, and denial as the truth emerged. Each person's reaction was a reflection of their guilt and the severity of the situation. The group's attempt to downplay their involvement only fueled the intensity of the confrontation, and the confrontation grew increasingly heated as accusations flew and defenses crumbled. The web of deceit was finally exposed, and the full scale of the betrayal became horrifyingly clear. Elena's manipulation had been systematic, and her lies had affected not just me, but the integrity of the entire team. The emotional impact was overwhelming. The realization of how deeply I had been deceived and the extent to which my trust had been shattered was almost unbearable. The confrontation had stripped away any illusions of normalcy and revealed the harsh reality of the situation. As the truth came crashing down, the path to resolution seemed both daunting and necessary, marking a pivotal moment in the journey towards coming to terms with the betrayal and seeking a way forward. The revelations had set the stage for an increasingly volatile atmosphere, and the tension between Elena and me reached a boiling point. With the full extent of her deceit now laid bare, our conversations became a battleground of accusations and defenses. The once familiar space of our home had turned into a charged arena, where every word seemed to amplify the growing discord. Elena's attempts at justification fell flat as I pressed her for answers, her explanations riddled with inconsistencies that only fueled my anger. The once tenuous threads of our relationship unraveled further with each confrontation. The arguments became more frequent and more heated, with Elena's attempts to placate me, met with my relentless probing into every lie and betrayal. The breaking point came during a particularly heated exchange in our living room. Elena, cornered and desperate, tried to deflect the blame, but her words only ignited the fury I had been trying to control. "You don't get to make excuses anymore," I shouted, my voice raw with a mix of rage and heartbreak. Her defensive stance crumbled into a flurry of emotional outbursts, and the argument escalated into a full-blown physical confrontation. My emotions, raw and unrestrained, fueled the intensity of the altercation. In a moment of blind fury, I pushed her, the force of my action sending us both crashing into the furniture. Elena's shocked cry was drowned out by the tumultuous wave of my own anger. We grappled, the physical struggle a manifestation of the deep emotional turmoil that had consumed us both. As we fought, more secrets spilled out in the heat of the moment. Details of Elena's involvement with Marcus and other colleagues, hidden agendas, and lies that had been carefully concealed. Each new revelation was a painful reminder of the extent of her betrayal, and the struggle became a chaotic blend of physical and emotional anguish. The physical altercation, though temporary, was a stark manifestation of the deep-seated resentment and pain that had been building up. Elena's attempts to defend herself were futile against the tide of my overwhelming hurt and anger. The confrontation left us both battered and emotionally drained, with the house echoing the remnants of our shattered trust. As the dust settled, the gravity of the situation became painfully clear, and the realization of how irrevocably our relationship had been damaged loomed large. The escalating tensions had stripped away any remaining pretense of normalcy, leaving us to face the raw, painful truth of what had transpired. The confrontation reached a critical juncture as I sat across from Elena in the dimly lit living room, the weight of the revelations pressing heavily between us. Her face was a mask of exhaustion and resignation, the earlier defiance giving way to a quiet, weary acceptance of the reality she could no longer escape. "We need to talk about everything," I said, my voice steadier now, but still tinged with the raw edge of betrayal. The room was thick with tension, each word heavy with the gravity of our shattered trust. As I laid out the evidence I had painstakingly gathered, texts, emails, and witness statements, the full extent of Elena's deceit began to unravel before us both. Her eyes, once filled with evasion, now reflected a mix of fear and shame as she faced the undeniable proof of her manipulations. Elena's initial attempts to deflect and minimize her actions crumbled under the weight of the incontrovertible facts. With each piece of evidence presented, her facade of control and composure fell away, revealing a tangled web of lies and deceit. "I never meant for it to get this far," she finally admitted, her voice cracking with a mix of remorse and desperation. "I thought I could manage it, that I could keep everything under control." Her confessions were punctuated by sobs and pleading, but the damage had already been done. The manipulation and betrayal she had orchestrated were far-reaching, involving not just Marcus, but other colleagues who had been unwittingly drawn into her deceitful schemes. The conversation was a devastating mix of emotional upheaval and stark realizations. As Elena laid bare the full extent of her manipulations, I struggled to process the breadth of her betrayal. Her explanations were a desperate attempt to justify her actions, but they did little to ease the crushing blow of the truth. "You've destroyed everything we built together," I said, the pain in my voice evident. "All the trust, all the love. It's all been tainted by your lies." The emotional intensity of the moment was overwhelming, each revelation adding to the sense of devastation that had already consumed me. As Elena's tears flowed and her confessions continued, the room seemed to close in around us, suffused with the bitter reality of what had transpired. The confrontation was a turning point, a decisive moment that marked the end of any illusion of reconciliation. The finality of the revelations was a harsh reminder of the irreparable damage done, setting the stage for the dramatic decisions that would follow. As the truth about Elena's manipulations continued to unfold, the gravity of her deceit hit me like a sledgehammer. The revelations were staggering, painting a picture of betrayal far more intricate and damaging than I had ever imagined. Elena's confessions revealed a network of deceit that extended beyond her affair with Marcus, implicating several of my colleagues in a web of lies and duplicity. Each disclosure seemed to unravel a new layer of the deceitful scheme she had meticulously crafted. She had not only been unfaithful, but had also orchestrated elaborate deceptions to cover her tracks, involving her colleagues in clandestine meetings and secretive exchanges that undermined the integrity of our professional and personal lives. The confrontation escalated as I sought out those involved, determined to understand the full extent of the betrayal. My first encounter was with Marcus, whose once defiant stance crumbled under the weight of the evidence I presented. His guilt was palpable as he admitted his role in Elena's deception, revealing how he had been complicit in her lies and had even provided her with support and information to maintain her false narrative. The conversation was tense and charged, with Marcus struggling to justify his actions while I absorbed the magnitude of his involvement. His confessions painted a grim picture of how deeply the betrayal had permeated our lives. Next, I turned my attention to other colleagues who had been part of Elena's deceitful network. Each interaction was a painful revelation, as I pieced together the full scope of the manipulations that had unfolded. Some colleagues admitted their unwitting involvement, their faces etched with regret as they recounted how they had been duped by Elena's charm and deceit. Others, however, were more defensive, attempting to downplay their actions or deflect responsibility. The series of confrontations revealed a disturbing reality. Elena's manipulations had been far-reaching, affecting not just our relationship, but the professional dynamics within our workplace. The series of revelations and confrontations forced me to make a series of critical decisions. I had to confront the individuals who had been part of this deceitful web, seeking both answers and closure. Each conversation was a painful step toward understanding the full extent of the betrayal and its impact on my life. The finality of the revelations left me grappling with the enormity of the situation, forcing me to confront not only the personal pain of Elena's deceit, but also the broader implications for my professional relationships. The decisions that followed were marked by a sense of urgency and resolve as I navigated the tumultuous aftermath of the betrayals, setting the stage for a new chapter defined by the lessons learned and the paths forward I would choose to take. The moment I stepped into Marcus's office, the tension was palpable, a heavy, suffocating presence that seemed to fill every corner of the room. Marcus looked up from his desk, his face flushing with a mix of shock and guilt as he recognized me. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low but charged with a barely contained rage. Marcus's initial attempt to maintain composure quickly crumbled as I laid out the damning evidence of his involvement with Elena. His eyes darted nervously, the weight of his betrayal evident in his shifting gaze. "Look, Marcus started, but his voice faltered as I pressed him with the incriminating texts and messages that revealed the depth of his relationship with Elena. The conversation quickly deteriorated into a heated argument as Marcus attempted to justify his actions, his excuses falling flat against the backdrop of undeniable evidence. "I never meant for it to get this far," he stammered. But the sincerity of his remorse was overshadowed by the depth of his betrayal. The anger that had been simmering inside me erupted uncontrollably, and before I could fully process my actions, I found myself confronting Marcus physically. The confrontation was swift and brutal, an explosion of frustration and disbelief that manifested in a flurry of angry shoves and punches. The office, once a place of routine and professionalism, became a chaotic battleground of raw emotion. Marcus, caught off guard by the intensity of my fury, struggled to defend himself, his attempts to counter my blows only heightening the sense of violence and urgency. The physical altercation was a cathartic release, a manifestation of the deep-seated pain and anger I felt towards both Marcus and Elena. As we grappled, the reality of the betrayal became glaringly apparent. The way Marcus's actions had not only violated the boundaries of our personal relationship, but had also contributed to a broader network of deceit that had tainted every aspect of our lives. Amidst the chaos, a moment of grim realization struck me. The extent of the betrayal was far beyond what I had initially understood. Marcus's involvement was not just a personal affront, but part of a larger, more systematic deceit that had ensnared multiple lives, including my own. The physical confrontation, while intense and damaging, was a stark representation of the emotional devastation I was grappling with. As the altercation subsided and the dust settled, the full weight of the betrayal and its implications began to sink in, marking a pivotal moment in my journey toward confronting the truth and deciding the path forward. The turning point arrived with a sharp, jarring clarity, forcing me to confront the full scope of the deception that had shattered my life. The series of confrontations and revelations had laid bare the intricate web of lies spun by Elena and her accomplices, leaving me with a profound sense of betrayal and a deep-seated need for resolution. As the gravity of the situation settled in, I knew that I had reached a critical juncture where decisive action was not only necessary, but imperative. The choices I made from this point forward would determine the trajectory of my life and the extent of the fallout from the betrayals I had uncovered. The decision to confront Elena one final time was fueled by a blend of anger and resolve. I arranged a meeting in a neutral location, away from the emotional chaos of our home. As I faced her, the weight of the previous revelations hung heavily in the air. "I can't keep living this lie," I said, my voice steady and firm. "We need to end this now." Elena's reaction was a mixture of shock and resignation, her attempts to salvage what remained of our relationship falling flat against the backdrop of the indisputable truths I had gathered. Her pleas for forgiveness and attempts to rationalize her actions were met with a resolute refusal on my part. I had made my decision to end the deception and to sever the ties that had bound us in a web of deceit. The subsequent confrontations with the other individuals involved were equally decisive and unforgiving. I met with Marcus, her colleagues, and anyone who had been complicit in the betrayal. Each interaction was marked by a mix of confrontation and revelation, as I demanded answers and accountability. The encounters were emotionally charged, with each person revealing additional layers of the deception, further illuminating the extent of the betrayal. These interactions were not just about seeking justice, but about reclaiming my sense of self and integrity. The process of confronting each individual and making the definitive choice to end the deceit was cathartic, but also painful. It marked a clear demarcation between the past and the future, a pivotal moment where I chose to reject the falsehoods and move forward with a renewed sense of purpose. The decisions made during this period were instrumental in shaping the future, setting the stage for a new beginning and an opportunity to rebuild my life on a foundation of truth and authenticity. As the finality of these choices set in, I began to see a glimmer of hope amid the wreckage, a sense of possibility that lay beyond the tumultuous end of a chapter defined by betrayal and deception. In the aftermath of the tumultuous revelations and confrontations, the protagonist faced the daunting task of navigating the consequences of the deep-seated betrayals that had upended his life. The decisive actions taken, severing ties with Elena, confronting Marcus and her colleagues, and unraveling the web of deceit, had been necessary, but they were only the beginning of a complex journey toward resolution and renewal. The emotional and practical fallout was significant, and every decision carried profound implications for the future. The process of disentangling from Elena and her network involved legal, financial, and personal ramifications. The divorce proceedings were a grueling testament to the damage wrought by the betrayal, each legal document and negotiation serving as a stark reminder of the broken trust and shattered dreams. Yet amidst the legal battles and emotional strain, there was a sense of liberation. The finalization of the divorce marked the end of a painful chapter and the beginning of a new phase defined by self-discovery and personal growth. The confrontation with Marcus and the other individuals involved also brought a measure of closure. While some sought to make amends or minimize their roles, the protagonist's resolve to hold them accountable was unwavering. The interactions, though often uncomfortable and fraught with lingering resentment, allowed for a necessary process of confronting the truth and seeking a semblance of justice. The resolution with these individuals was less about exacting revenge and more about reclaiming a sense of control and integrity in the wake of the deceit. As the protagonist moved forward, the focus shifted toward healing and rebuilding. The process of addressing the emotional scars left by the betrayal became paramount. Therapy and support from friends and family played crucial roles in navigating the aftermath and beginning the journey of recovery. The protagonist embraced new opportunities, both personally and professionally, with a renewed sense of purpose. The path forward was marked by a commitment to authenticity and a determination to rebuild from the ground up. The story concludes with a sense of cautious optimism. The protagonist's journey through betrayal and deceit had been harrowing, but it also paved the way for a fresh start. The final chapter of this saga is not just about the resolution of past conflicts, but also about the possibilities that lie ahead. As the protagonist steps into this new chapter, there is a recognition that while the past cannot be undone, the future holds the potential for growth, new beginnings, and a life defined by newfound resilience and authenticity. As the protagonist began to piece his life back together, the process was both challenging and transformative. The aftermath of the betrayal involved more than just practical adjustments. It required a deep, introspective journey to heal and rediscover a sense of self-worth. The emotional toll had been heavy, but with time and effort, the protagonist started to rebuild a sense of normalcy. He immersed himself in new projects and passions, seeking solace and purpose in activities that had once been overshadowed by the tumult of his personal life. This period of reinvention was marked by a deliberate effort to embrace change and foster new relationships, both personal and professional. Support from friends and family played a crucial role in navigating this transitional phase. Conversations with loved ones provided comfort and perspective, helping to reinforce the protagonist's resolve to move forward. The sense of community and understanding offered a much-needed anchor amid the shifting tides of his life. Therapy sessions, while emotionally taxing, proved instrumental in processing the complex feelings of betrayal, grief, and eventual acceptance. The therapeutic journey was a cornerstone in developing resilience and gaining clarity about the future. Professionally, the protagonist found new opportunities that allowed him to redirect his energy and focus. Whether it was pursuing career advancements, exploring new business ventures, or engaging in creative projects, the protagonist channeled his experiences into productive and fulfilling pursuits. This newfound professional engagement not only provided financial stability but also served as a source of personal satisfaction and growth. In terms of personal relationships, the protagonist approached new connections with a mix of cautious optimism and guarded hope. The scars from past betrayals were not easily forgotten, but they served as a reminder of the importance of trust and authenticity. Building new relationships involved a careful balance of vulnerability and strength, learning from past experiences while remaining open to future possibilities. The protagonist's journey through heartbreak and recovery had endowed him with a deeper understanding of himself and a clearer vision of what he desired in future relationships. The story's resolution is marked by a profound sense of closure and a hopeful outlook for the future. The protagonist's journey from the depths of betrayal to a place of personal empowerment is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Although the road to recovery was fraught with challenges, it ultimately led to a place of renewed strength and purpose. As the protagonist steps into this new chapter, there is a clear sense of having emerged from the darkness, with a renewed appreciation for life's possibilities. The future, while uncertain, is approached with a sense of readiness and optimism, embodying the lessons learned and the growth achieved through a period of profound transformation. As the protagonist settled into his new reality, the transformation from victim to survivor became increasingly evident. The journey had not been easy, but it led to a deeper self-awareness and a more resilient outlook on life. Each step forward was a testament to the strength and courage required to rebuild after such a profound betrayal. The process of moving on involved more than just adapting to new circumstances. It required an active and ongoing effort to redefine his identity and embrace new opportunities with an open heart. In the wake of the emotional and legal battles, the protagonist found solace in reconnecting with old friends and pursuing long-neglected hobbies. Engaging in activities that brought joy and fulfillment provided a counterbalance to the pain of the past. Whether it was taking up a new sport, traveling to places he had always dreamed of visiting, or exploring creative outlets, these pursuits became vital components of his healing journey. They offered not only a distraction from the lingering hurt, but also a means of rediscovering and nurturing his passions and interests. In terms of relationships, the protagonist approached each new connection with a blend of cautious optimism and guarded vulnerability. The scars of past betrayals had made him more discerning, but they also encouraged him to value authenticity and genuine connection. New friendships and romantic relationships were built on a foundation of trust and mutual respect, guided by the lessons learned from previous experiences. The protagonist's ability to open up and build meaningful connections was a sign of his emotional growth and resilience. Professionally, the protagonist experienced a resurgence of ambition and creativity. The challenges faced during the tumultuous period had ignited a drive to pursue new goals and seize opportunities that had once seemed out of reach. Career advancements, entrepreneurial ventures, or creative projects became avenues for personal expression and achievement. The professional success that followed was not just a testament to his skills and determination, but also a reflection of his ability to harness his experiences for positive change. The story's resolution culminates in a powerful acknowledgement of the protagonist's journey from despair to empowerment. The culmination of his efforts is a life marked by renewed purpose, meaningful relationships, and a sense of fulfillment that transcends the pain of the past. As he looks toward the future, there is a clear understanding that while the scars of betrayal may never fully disappear, they have become a part of his story, one that has shaped him into a more resilient and insightful individual. The final chapter of this saga is a celebration of personal triumph over adversity. The protagonist's path forward is illuminated by the lessons learned and the growth achieved, reflecting a hopeful and optimistic view of what lies ahead. The story concludes with a sense of closure and an embrace of new beginnings, marking the end of one chapter and the promising start of another, where the protagonist steps into a future defined by authenticity, strength, and renewed hope.